honest. And yeah, well, and also, firstly, sorry everyone that I've dragged you onto your screens again, but this time I've got a lightning fast internet connection, so hopefully all will be well. So on with the show. What we're going to be talking about this evening, we are going to be talking about plant records, why they matter, how to do it, how to store them, what's the best method, what do you put in them, and some of the key methods that community tree nurseries can manage them in Excel. And then right at the end, we'll just have a little tiny look at how you can create your own app out of your records to make managing records easier in the field. Okay, so why do we keep plant records? The main reason overall is the traceability of plants, traceability of data and information. So we want to know from the moment the seed is collected to the time a tree is distributed and planted somewhere, all the things that have happened to it in that time. So a plant record should be able to tell you that, you know, a tree that was brought from you by Fred, say, last year was later found to have a weird disease. And your records should be able to tell you, you know, when did Fred buy this tree? What batch did it come from? You know, where was the batch grown, or did it come from another supplier? Where did you collect the seed from? Was it raining on the day you collected the seed? All this kind of information you can and ought to be able to keep to ensure that you've got full traceability through all of the plants that you're growing in your nurseries. Who uses these records? Well, partly there are statutory reasons why you have to keep plant records. Any of you that are dealing with plant passports will need to keep records both of the passports, but if you're giving passports out, they are records of everything bought and sold, and you'll have to have the botanical name on there, an individual batch ID, records about the nursery of origin, etc. You may have to deal in phytosanitary certificates if you're bringing plant material in from overseas. These are needed for cross-border plant movements. And again, certain key fields are needed for these, such as botanical name, plant material type, treatments, etc. Other things you may have to deal with are collection permits, particularly relevant, I think, in CTN cases is forest reproductive material permits. These are permits that allow you to collect seed and distribute it. So this will again require record keeping to keep on top of all of those. There are lots of accreditation programs out there that also require plant records. Botanic gardens, obviously, the national plant collections where I work, you need a certain set of records to prove that you've got the plants and they're in good order. If you're dealing with something like the plant healthy certification, that will require plant records to be kept, particularly around biosecurity and quarantine. And as I understand, there is no accreditation or anything for community tree nurseries, but you know, it may be that a few key fields or certain basic standards would be quite useful maybe to meet for everyone. Records are also kept for conservation. There's plenty of national recording schemes out there that are recording the history and of our flora over time. But also really quite specific schemes, such as the Ancient Tree Inventory will take plant records of particularly notable trees. Or you can get involved in something like Tree Alert, which is, you know, plant records of pest and disease records on plants. So plant records are vital for conservation. And they're also really just practical. You can't remember everything. So just for you and your own day-to-day work in the nursery, you know, it's for keeping track of key information, monitoring what you're doing to your plants, any treatments, any problems. You know, where are they in the nursery? How many of them have you got? You know, it's so important to keep records clearly and consistently that others can understand, so that at some point, if you want to hand those information on to others, you can do that easily. So what are the best ways of storing plant records? So for records to be useful, the first thing, and I know it sounds really obvious, you actually need to know that they exist. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I have worked in a job for a few years, and then suddenly you find this treasure trove in a dusty filing cabinet somewhere of all the key information you really wish you'd known 3 years ago. Or it could be an old laptop or hard drive, and someone's lost the password of it. So it's really important to sort of document what data you do have and what data you are keeping about your plants and your collections, so that you know it exists for the future. So say you might have a drawer full of invoices and a load of spreadsheets on a Google Drive in this folder, and all images on a another drive somewhere. So it's almost useful to do a sort of inventory first before you start of what data you do have. Records need to be accessible to whoever needs them. So say you've got 3 people working on on your plants, can they all access a live copy of the records if they need to? Or is it a static document and there's always 3 or 4 versions going and nobody knows which is the most up to date? So accessibility is really important. Records need to be searchable. Can you find the information you need and quickly? And would someone else be able to find this information? And part of being searchable is being consistent. So if many people are adding information, it's important to all be doing it the same way. If someone is using oak as the name of a plant and someone is using quercus, what are you going to look for? How are you going to search for that? They also need to be secure. You really don't want to lose your records. It's really easy to lose paper notes, digital files get corrupted or deleted, passwords get lost, or laptops brick themselves, so really think carefully about how your records are kept and how your records are backed up. So yeah, over the next few slides, we're going to look at the 3 of the most common ways of storing records, and the pluses and some of the pitfalls of each. Right, so firstly, paper. I mean, this is the most accessible. Anyone can grab a pen and paper. It's always to hand. It's also accessible in the fields generally, if you remember your notebook and a pen. But it may only be accessible to one person at a time. You may receive a lot of paper records as well. So things like invoices or plant passports, they may be physical records that will need to be stored somewhere. But the downside, of course, of paper is that they're not really searchable. Even if you've got the best filing system, notebooks are sort of a nightmare to flick through and find where did you write that really important thing down. It's really hard to enforce any kind of consistency across them, and they're not particularly secure either. I mean, although we do have paper records from 100 years ago, there's probably quite a lot of survivorship bias in that, and we'll have lost far more than we've retained. And it's really easy to lose scraps of paper and notebooks and things like that. And another problem with paper records is that it can take up quite a lot of physical space. So, nowadays people don't want stacks and stacks of filing cabinets in the corner of a room. It's not very practical. So, yeah, so the second method, and the one that I suspect is most commonly used because everybody who supplied some example records to me did them on a spreadsheet, is a spreadsheet. Now these are accessible to most, either through Excel, which is a sort of subscription service, but many have access through work, or there are free versions such as Google Sheets and OpenOffice. So this is the accessibility of these is also down to the fact that there is a huge amount of written material out there that will allow you to come up any problems you come across. You're likely to just type it into Google and someone else will have had the same problem and they'll have made a really helpful little video to help you through it. So the accessibility also comes with the amount of help material out there. And particularly nowadays with more and more cloud storage, so things like Google Drives and Dropboxes, is that multiple people can work on the same spreadsheet at once. It's not the days of, nightmare version control. You can have multiple people all working on the same spreadsheet. So there are lots of advantages, obviously, of a spreadsheet. They are searchable and sortable if used correctly. They're easy to sort of share and transfer. But the downside is that they are often not used very well. They're not used very consistently. There's lots of different ways that you can write in data that really snarls up searches and ease of use. And they can get quite unwieldy if you've got a lot of data added. So that's one of the downsides. And also they're quite fiddly to use in the field. You know, you can get versions on your mobile, but you know, it is a bit fiddly. And so the other way we were going to look at briefly is databases. Now this is generally the gold standard of storing data. So databases are like a spreadsheet, but in 3D. So they're able to pull information from lots and lots of different sheets and display it in a really user-friendly way. They're excellent for making data searchable and organizable. You can hold a huge amount of data in them, including things like pictures, scans, uploads, maps and geolocations, etc. So you can hold a hell of a lot of information within a database quite easily. And they've generally been designed to have a sort of a simple user interface. So you're not dealing with large tables of data all the time. And they're generally secure depending on where it is hosted. So the old style used to be more on sort of hard drives, CD-ROM drives, etc. But nowadays most are cloud-based, and that allows you, as long as the cloud is backed up, which it generally is, your data is safe. But the downside of databases is the access. They can be expensive. There's a lot of proprietary systems out there, but they're not cheap. And they often require quite a lot of training in use, especially if you're not familiar with them. So it's not a complete catch-all. So what we're going to look at really, because as it's the midpoint between the accessibility and technical clout, is spreadsheets in more detail. Okay, so we're going to look at a spreadsheet, but what do you want to put in the spreadsheet? What goes into a plant record? Then a way of thinking about a record is it really is just a little mini story about every plant in your collection. You know, where did it come from, when, who collected it, and why did they collect it? What was done to it then? How did it respond? Where is it now, etc. And the kind of information you are recording is completely dependent on you and your purpose of what you're doing, what your nursery is for. So there isn't any like set, this is what you have to do. But there are, I think, some key fundamentals on plant recording that I think it would be wise for everyone to include, which is what is it, where is it, or where did it come from, when did it come from, and who collected it. So these are often the sort of standard recording fields for lots of different conservation schemes, lots of different statutory things. They'll all want these for fundamentals. But for you and your particular nursery, you might also want to include a whole host of other different reasons, such as why you've collected it and what you've done to it after you've collected it. You know, how much you've got in stock, how much have you sold, where is it physically, you know, all your distribution records, where did it go? And you might want to even extend it further. You know, you might have interesting histories or stories that go with, you know, the people who've given you plants, or a particularly notable tree that you've collected it from. So there is no end really to how much information you can, if you really want to, add to your records. So in the next section, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the various parts of a plant record and how best to manage them in a spreadsheet. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sort of flipping back and forward from this presentation to a spreadsheet, an example spreadsheet. I've got a best practice one. I've got one which has got common pitfalls and what to avoid. All things that I have seen before in sort of a lot of experience of dealing with spreadsheets of all shapes and sizes. So we're going to start off and we're going to look at possibly one of the key parts of the most important parts is what is this plant? What is it called? So all plants, as I'm sure you're aware, have got a botanical name in Latin. Most also have got a common name too. But common names can be a bit ambiguous. So if you just say you've got collected some seeds of oak, well, which type of oak? There's more than one. So generally, for best practice record keeping, it's always good to include the botanical name as part of the plant name, and of course, you're free to put the common name in as well. We discussed a little bit on the face-to-face one about questions, whether questions ever arise on identification, and are you sure this is what you think it is? The general advice is, if you're not sure, only record the name to the level that you are sure. So if you know that it's an oak, but you don't know if it's a sessile or pedunculate, or I can't remember all the oaks, but then only put Quercus for oak until you've got a more accurate identification. So now I'm going to try and flick to my spreadsheet, which might be the tricky bit. Let's see if this works. Oh, can you all see this? I think you probably can. So here we go. Here is a spreadsheet that I've just sort of set up as a sample. It's not the be all end all, but I just, when putting this together, I was thinking, well, this is possibly how I would do it. And we'll share this with you all. So if anyone wants to sort of use this as a template, you're very welcome. So here we go. I've got the botanical name here written in a column. And one thing I think it's quite good to sort of note firstly as we're going through this spreadsheet is that I've got a different column here for every different distinct bit of data that I'm collecting. So whether it's a botanical name, the common name, the date collected, I'm keeping them all in separate columns. And then likewise, for each of my unique plant collection, seed collection events, I've got a separate row for each one. So here I've got all my names in one column. I'm just going to quickly show you on the sort of what not to do, and this is what I often see, is you have the plant name and people will sort of mix up a Latin name with a common name. They'll add extra information in the plant name section, such as when was it collected, etc. And the downside of doing this is that suddenly Excel's really powerful sort of sorting and filtering doesn't work anymore. So in my records here, if I go and put a filter on, so that's just this tab up here. If I highlight that again and put a filter on, I can press this little arrow and I've got all my names neatly listed, and if I was to just tick on one of them, I could see all the oldness. I've only got one. Is there anything I've got more of one then? All the Quercus say. So really valuable to be able to, at a quick glance, filter your data to get ready to only look at the bits that you want to look at. And you can only do that if you have the names written in correctly. So if we just have a look at this one, I can't actually really do a filter on this because it is just listing all these different names all a bit willy-nilly. So yeah, that is sorting and filtering is probably one of the things you're going to end up using most on Excel. So it's quite good to get into the habit of organizing your data in a way that you can manage that quite easily. Okay. On to the next key part, almost as important as the plant name, is going to be the batch ID. So this attaches all of the extra records to an actual specimen of a plant. So it's like a unique identifier for a specific plant or seed batch, not for each species, but for each, say, collection event of that species. So say you went out to a wood on the 1st of December to collect seed. All the birch seed you collected on that day would get a unique ID. All the oak seed you collected would get a different ID. And then if you went to a different wood that day to collect more seed, I would give that a different ID number once again. And this unique ID number should stay with the plant from the day of collection to when you're recording who has received it in your dispatch end. And there is no set way of making these batch IDs, but it's sometimes you can just do simple sequential numbers. But I think that, it's really helpful to include some information about the batch. So you can just look at a batch ID and instantly know information about this. And also in my experience, you're going to write this number out a lot. So make them short but meaningful. What I've got here is adapted from a sort of fairly standard Botanic Garden template. What I've got is a year acquired, 23, that's the year the seed was collected. And then I just start a sequential numbering system starting at 0, 1 each year. I put a code for the plant name. So even if it's just a brown stick for 6 months of the year, I know that it's an oak because it's Q row for Quercus robur. You could add codes for how you acquired it as, whatever, it's really up to you, but make it meaningful and make it sort of sensible to you. And then as an example here, this is the batch IDs I've got in this column. What I've done to try and make life easier, because you don't want to be spending all your time writing things out, is I've set up an auto generate here in this column. So if I was just to add a new plant, let's put another malus. That's quite a good way of making sure that you're typing the correct spelling every time. So I've just got a long list and it's auto completing for me, Malus sylvestris. Don't need a common name. Let's put a date in. 1st of the 3rd, 4. And then here it's auto generated just because there's a little formula up here that's given it a unique. It's given it the year. It's given it a unique number. And it's given it a code generated from the botanical name. Because these are all should be unique as well, there's another tool that you can use to make sure that you're not duplicating the same number twice, is that you can put a a conditional format onto a column. So I'm just going to put the conditional formatting on this column to highlight any duplicate values. So if I just change all of these to change one of these to the same as the one above, so say that is 24-I-. That should highlight it red. So that's a sort of another fail safe to make sure you don't end up with duplicate batch numbers. Okay. Let's try and flip back to this. The third real key field for plant records is where was the material collected from? So sites can be identified in lots of different ways. You can give it a name, it can have a latitude and longitude, or grid references are often used. So although names are very memorable and great and useful for us, actually they're often repeated. So there's a hell of a lot of Mount Pleasants and long woods around. So it's important to be accurate. So I would always, it's sort of maybe in addition to a name, put in some extra information. Lat and long is quite useful if you want a precise location. So say you want to, you really are keen on getting seed from particular trees, like this is a notable, particularly old oak tree. So you can put a lat and long in, and you can get the lat and long quite easily from Google Maps. So if we were to go to Google, let's put a pin in, yeah, this is the churchyard where that is the yew tree. And then, well, I can't see it because it's under my share thing, but under there should be a lat and long. And also up here in the URL, can you see they put the lat and long helpfully up there. So that's really useful if you want to put in your records an exact pin of where something is. A second way of doing it, and this is more useful if you are recording, if you're collecting tree in a wood, is to use a grid reference. So grid references are the result of the entire country being divided up into squares of various sizes. So they can be as loose or precise as needed. So you can have a 10-meter square, or you can have a 100-meter square, or you can have a kilometer square to encompass the whole of your wood. So this is the most useful website I've ever found for finding a grid reference in a hurry. It's called Grab a Grid Reference. So you have one map here. Let's just drag that onto this wood. Zoom in a bit, give you the OS map. So here's a good example actually. So on this woodland here, this is a 1 kilometre square grid reference, and it's giving me this 2 letters and 4 figures. This is telling me that it's a 1 kilometre square, but actually if you'd collected seed from all over this wood, it would actually be more accurate to give the 2 kilometre square grid reference, because you've collected seed from all over this wood. So although it is a more broad reference, you know, it's covering a wider area, it's actually more precise as a recording tool, because you are actually recording all of the area which you are gathering seed from. So yeah, so you can quite easily copy across a grid reference for whatever resolution you need into your records if you are recording on that sort of woodland scale. You might also have plant material that is brought in. So many of you might be kind of buying in plants or being donated plants, but it's also important to keep a record of where it came from. So where is it from? Does it have a plant passport, or etc.? Is there any quarantine collected with this? So part of where is where it has come from. I can't remember what I put in the records about where. Let's have a quick look. So yeah, here we go. I've got grid references down here, and then I've made a separate one for any bought-in material. I've just coloured green to make it easier. So it's just helpful, I think. You'll get a plant passport number if you're receiving plant passports, is to put the plant passport number in, etc. Let's go to this one, this one. Okay. The next thing that is really important to be in all of your records are dates, and I don't think you're going to come across any plant records that don't have dates in them. But this is one of the things that is the most often is a real headache with dates, because Excel can be a real pig sometimes about making dates a bit weird, and dates are often entered really inconsistently. So it's really important to be consistent in your data entry of dates. So ideally you'd want to do it as a sort of day, month and year, and this ensures that it can be sorted and filtered quite easily. So you can easily sort, you know, everything between 2 dates or everything after a certain date. Let's have a look at some examples of this. Let's go to the spreadsheet again. Okay, so I've got dates here in this column F. I can, just to sort of demonstrate, the sorts and filters for dates are quite sophisticated. So, you know, it will allow you to sort of sort for everything in 2004. You can expand that and it will give you by the month. So it's quite helpful. You can just pick everything that you collected, say in October 2023, and it will allow you to do that. But if you're adding new dates in, what I kind of discovered is if you just put a year in, if you're not quite sure, it automatically defaults to this weird 1905 date. And that's just because Excel has a strange way of counting dates from 1st of January 1900. So you always have to have at least a month, ideally a month and a year. So I think if I put 03 2024 in, yeah, it will automatically default to the 1st of the month. You're probably going to have reasonably accurate dates, but if you don't, I find always just defaulting to 01/01 2024 kind of tells me that this was collected in 2024, but I wasn't quite sure when. Always try and be accurate as possible, but yeah, we understand that sometimes you're never going to quite know when things were collected. So I would just default to the 1st of the month if not sure. Something that I see happening quite often with dates is you get drag and drop errors. So if you collected lots of things on the same day, it's really easy to drag them down. And what tends to happen is it just auto-fills. It thinks you want to put sequential days in. But this little thing at the bottom here, and if you just copy the cells instead of filling the series, that will give you all the same date. So I can't tell you the amount of times, even in my own spreadsheets, I've come across drag and drop errors. So let's just delete those. Cool. Yeah, I think that's probably all that's to be said about dates. Let's go and look at the next key fields that lots, certainly on the conservation side, will want to have in the records is who has done the collection or who has been out and made this seed collection and identification. Who collected? Yeah, so can you resolve problems down the line? This is the reason you do this, is that sometimes you can help resolve problems many years down the line, because perhaps, you know, there's certain people whose identification skills are better than others. You know, if you know that a certain person has collected it and you know that actually, I'm not sure all these are sessile oaks, I think they might be the other one. Yeah, you've got a good clue as to who has done that. But how much detail you need to keep about his collecting the seed, well, up to you really. But I think it is important to think about the longevity of your records. In 10 years' time, you're going to know who, you know, an initial is, BA or whatever. So yeah, make it meaningful to you when you're thinking about who. And then just a little sort of a side point really on GDPR, you know, if you're keeping people's names and contact details, email addresses, phone numbers, etc., I find it always better to just have a separate spreadsheet with that, because it means you just can't accidentally share your spreadsheet with someone like a client or something, and then you've got a whole heap of people's email addresses in the back, which is not great. So generally I would keep a separate spreadsheet or a worksheet for anything that's sort of GDPR sensitive, so that you're not going to ever accidentally send it out. Right, so those are the key fields. These are the ones that, you know, might be more depending on what you're interested in or what your specific project is about. You might want to record why or what you're doing it for. So it could be, yeah, your forest reproductive material permission records. It'll have an ID number on it that ought to be linked to the particular collection event. Maybe there was a particular project you're working on and you want to make sure that this is noted in the records. So, like example, you're collecting seeds from over 1,000-year-old yews or something as a particular project. So you might want to keep that as a separate column, so that you know which ones you've got growing for that. It can be as broad or as narrow as your collection interests are really. So it depends on what you're doing. And then this is the big one really, is the post collection records. So these are probably what you're going to be recording as what's happened after you've collected the seed, what you're doing to it, what kind of treatments or stratification are you giving to it, you know, what were your germination rates, were there any pests, any other incidental notes on it. So if we go back and have a look at my spreadsheet here. So this is where I have now separated my collection spreadsheet into the bottom here. If you have a look, I've got a separate tab now, which has got my stock records on. And the reason I've put this in a separate tab or separate sheet is because it would break the rule here of having one row per batch ID if I was going to start putting multiple sowing events in there on multiple dates, say. So for example, here I've got you know, I've got the same batch ID and I'm doing different things to it. So I'm going to have the same batch ID repeated. So instead of putting on your collection records, copying that and then just making another row or trying to add things to it, I would always say start another worksheet, and you can link back to your collection worksheet. So for example, here, if I click on this, all I've done is instead of having to type that out, I've just made a link to that. So let's just do another one here. If I wanted to add another one in, I just press the equals and say I'm just going to work on that one, and that will bring that over without me having to type and potentially mistype it. And again, I've got all of my separate data in separate columns. Here I want to record how many stratification weeks I'm doing on my seed before sowing. And I've just created a formula here so that I've got number of stratification weeks, and all I've done here is times that by 7 to give days and added that onto the date sown, and then that's given me the date that I need to remove it from the fridge. I've got my quantities here, and then I can record quite easily how many have germinated, and then these are more sort of general stock control measures. So this is going to be very dependent on you and the kind of information that you're recording. Let's just flip back to the spreadsheet here. So yeah, it's going to be, yeah, as I say, hugely dependent on each different nursery. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Gabriele, who's going to talk us a bit more about more trees and what they do with their records. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second.
Great. Hello. Can everybody hear me, see me? Am I here? Thumbs up. Yep. Great. Fantastic. Thank you, Vicky. That was really amazing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you some of More Trees spreadsheets. Dave, our nursery manager, has made these amazing spreadsheets, and I've sort of taken all the private data out and just turned them into templates. And so it's just a nice way for you to see kind of lots of the things that Vicky's talked about, but kind of in practice how we do it, because we do some things differently, some things the same. There's no right way to do it. So I'm going to share my screen. And start by kind of showing you our seed collection data. So just, it might be confusing. I work for More Trees. I also work for Coventry. So I kind of worked a job at a community tree nursery, but also this, I'm with a team at Coventry as well. So I'm speaking sort of on behalf of both right now. So with our spreadsheets, Vicky talked about the kind of batch ID code. And for us, our batch ID code is kind of made up of 3 elements. One is the species, one is the site where we collected that seed from, and one is the year. So kind of the combination of those 3 bits of information together make a unique batch ID. So if we collect holly, for example, if we collect holly from somewhere, even if we collect it over a 5-day period, we put that down as the same batch number because we kind of go back to the same place to collect holly. And so we don't kind of have a different batch for every day collected. We'll just have a batch for the seed of a particular species collected at a particular place in that season. So that's our batch. And we don't actually put our scientific names down. We've just got a code, and each of those code, everyone knows what they mean. We've got a big board which has a list of the codes. So Hol is holly, GR is Guelder Rose, that's blackthorn, that's oak. And we kind of don't always specify sessile or kind of English oak, just because they're so hard to tell apart. We just usually identify it to the oak level, SLL, small leaf lime. So that's how we do our kind of unique batch ID. And our site code. So we've got probably about 20 sites that we collect all our seed from, and they've all got a code. So all of these are made up here. But if everyone kind of who works for us, they'll see, okay, that says Ven. Everyone knows that's from Venford Reservoir. And so we've got a site code related to a site name. One thing we also keep is site permissions. So from every site that we collect from, we need to get written permission to collect those seeds, and we just keep that in a folder. And we've got, you know, copies of emails and letters which have kind of shown that we've got that written permission to collect. You can put grid references down as well. We note the seed zone. The whole country is divided into seed zones. 305's Devon, and pretty much all our seed are collected from there. And here, collection start date, collection end date. That just acknowledges the fact that some collections are over multiple days. We've got this column in here, which is useful because it's just said collected, yes or no. Occasionally, we might buy seed in. And if you want to buy seed in as well as collecting seed, it's good to have a way of recording that. So for this one, which is not being collected, there's an option to put a seed lot number, which will come with your seed order and that as well. Collected by, that's the Vicky's Whodunit. So we've got our community tree nursery volunteer days where we collect most of our seeds. So we just kind of broadly record that was on a volunteer day, and then we also have some dedicated volunteers who also go out collect. So you can also note that in collected. So this is the sort of data we're recording. And then we kind of come into the next stage of I'm just going to talk quickly about this. So some species are controlled species, and this might not apply for all community tree nurseries. But if you are selling trees and the trees being sold will be used for woodland creation purposes, as opposed to, you know, just a tree in someone's garden or a hedge or an apple orchard, if the trees are going to be used to kind of plant woodland, plant a hedge, and they're being sold, there are certain species which are controlled by what are called FRM regulations. And so for those species, we've got a little comment here which says, are they controlled? So yes, we've got oak and our smally lime, they're two controlled species. And for them, you need to have your what is called a notification for intent to collect. So you've just got to basically on the Forestry Commission portal, you just say you want to collect these seeds, and you can, once you've submitted that, you can put down your you can put down a number for your NICS, which is an example is here. And then once you've collected the seed, you register the fact you've collected the seed with an FRM on the same portal, and you'll get a master certificate, which is here. So we do that. Lots of tree nurseries give their trees away for free, or a very small scale and might not do that. But this is just a useful way to say, okay, we've got, yeah, we do. This is a controlled species, and we just double check, have we completed the NICS and the master certificate. The other thing we keep records of is how much we collected. So this is all quite complicated. So we've got the fresh weight, so that everything's weighed in. And then here we've got a calculation of how much 10 fruits weigh. So for blackthorn, 10 fruits weigh. Here, I'm not sure if I made these numbers up, but 19 grams. And then you can kind of extrapolate the fresh weight with how much 10 fruit weigh to get an approximate number of fruit. So we know roughly how much fruit we've got. And there's also the dry weight of seeds. So for something like blackthorn, you might have then taken all the flesh off, processed it, and the weight's different. So we'll record all of that kind of processing information. So that gives us a sense of how much we've collected, how much seeds have we got, and then hence, depending on germination rates, how much we're actually going to be growing that year. And then after that, the final thing in this document is kind of a weekly calendar. So we've divided every week of the year into a different number: 21, 22, 23, week beginning 22nd of May, etc. And we go through for everything we collect and say, okay, we've received it then. This is when we're planning on processing it. This is when we're planning warm stratification. This is when we're planning cold stratification. And then this is when we're going to sow it. So we kind of, as opposed to be a record of what we actually did, this is like a to-do list. It's kind of saying, right, we can look at each week and we can say, okay, we're doing cold stratification this week, we're doing warm stratification this week. So we know, that we're on track with everything. And then in here, usually at the point where seeds start germinating, we might make a note of, I haven't done it here, but we might make a note of it germinated. This week it was the week where it germinated. We've got a nice little formula here, which just says sowing date entered and cold stratification date entered. So that's just a quick way you can check through, have I actually inputted all that data into here. So here it says false for sowing date. So I haven't entered a sowing date. So if I was to write sow there, that should go green. So it means, okay, I know that that's under control. So that's how we that's the records that we keep. After that, once things have been sowed and ended up in kind of root trainers or beds, they sort of disappear off the spreadsheet, and they end up on a kind of a big whiteboard we have in the nursery, and it's got a whiteboard which has got a bed plan with all the beds where everything is, and it will have the species, the site code, and the year code. So we know, in the nursery where that particular thing is, even though it might not be on this particular spreadsheet, which is probably the easiest way to do it, because it gets really complicated. You get some stuff ending up in, root trainers, some stuff which ends up in, as bare root plants, and some stuff which doesn't germinate, and actually we stratify again the following year, and it to germinate again the following year. So we actually got some things at the nursery now which they're in their third year of stratification, and each year we get a little bit, but this year lots is coming up. So and then how we manage our stock levels. So things then go from the spreadsheet, they go into the nursery, and this is basically coloring in Excel, where Dave's made this amazing bed plan, so we can see, okay, these are the beds 1, 2, 3. Here are the staging A1 to A5, A2 to A6, etc. And then when we do it, our stock take is our real way to kind of figure out how much is actually grown. And so it looks like this. We go around the nursery, and for each bed 1, bed 1A, bed 2, these things are all in our kind of nursery plan. We make a record. Is it bare root? What's the species code, site collected in year? So that's our unique reference. And then we make a comment, how many under 20, which we wouldn't sell, 20 to 40s, and 40 centimeter plus. And so usually it used to be once a year. We've kind of moved it to twice a year. We'll do a stock take, one maybe midsummer, one towards the end of summer. And our total stock is calculated here. So this template will be available afterwards, and it's really kind of useful, the code in here. So what it does is, if the species is older, so if in here the species is older, it counts how many records of under 20, 20 to 40, or 40 there are. So here you can see with crabapple we've got 43 here, and if we go down to crabapple with 43, so that's the only record of crabapple. So that's really nice. It kind of automatically updates this total stock. And then from that, how do you keep track of stock as people are buying it or it's being given away? We've got here our total stock. This is copied and pasted from here, and it's linked. So if this changes, this total stock will also change. And then you can just put your kind of customer entries in there. So here for customer 2, I put a record in that they want 8 20 to 40 orders. And then this ordered column adds up each of these customers. You can add additional customers in, and then total stock, takeaway ordered, that gives what's remaining. So we've given away, in this example, 13 too many orders, mostly because our total stock is 0. So we know, but it's a good way. You can kind of make it go red, and you can see, okay, I can't actually give this away, and it gives you a sense of how much stock you've got. So that's it. And then once it comes out of Once it's been ordered, the other records that we keep will be plant passports, which are kind of provided, and our what's it called, our sales supplier documentation, and that lets us, we've got a one folder with all our supplier documents on, which says which customer got what. It got birch collected in 2020 from this forest, it got beech collected in 2019 from this place, and it's just got a list of their order. So those are records that we also keep. So that's kind of how we manage our stock. I'm just going to show one more spreadsheet, which is useful for anyone who is interested in kind of tracking pests and diseases. But one thing which is recommended in terms of kind of biosecurity is every week to look around all your stock and see kind of if it's healthy or not. So as before, we've got week numbers here and week beginnings, 2nd of January, 9th of January, etc. And this is a simple template where you add 0 if you don't see any signs of pest or disease, and you add a 1 if you do. So it's a good way to track if you've got anything, and it's good to know if you don't have a pest and disease. That's also a good thing to take note of. And here you see in week 22, there was something noticed on field maple. And then the other tab, pest and disease record, you can put the species, the week, the date, and that allows you to give more information as to kind of what you observed. So field maple in week 22, there was a red, I can't pronounce that, puzzle ghoul noticed on the tree. So that's a good way. And some people make it, you might have additional information as to kind of which bed it is, which batch it is, which we don't often put because often it's on everything. And we also record if it's on kind of, around the site. So if we've noticed powdery mildew on oak, it could be on our bare root whips growing in the nursery, or it could be on the trees around. We make a note of that as well. So that's kind of, I think that's everything from me. Hope you heard it all. And I'll hand over back to our team who can do question and answers and all of that. And please ask any questions because I probably missed some things out. Thank you.
Cool. I'm just going to do a little bit extra on Google App Sheets, which is a really useful little tool that I'm not going to talk very much about because I'm not an expert in it at all, but I think might appeal to a few of you. The great advantage of this is that it is it's an app that you create from a spreadsheet. So if you've got a spreadsheet and you've followed all the advice we've sort of shown you today, you can get yourself a spreadsheet that will instantly convert into an app that you can use on your mobile. And as we probably all know, mobiles are with us all the time. There's reception pretty much most places and it's getting better. And so the value of being able to record things, on a mobile that is instant in the field. So when you're out next to a tree, you can record it instantly. When you're not having to write things on a piece of paper or remember it in your head and go back into the office and then type it out. I mean, the amount of information that's sort of lost between the field and the office must be would fill many books, shall we say. So I thought I'd just quickly show you this this app sheets thing. It basically just, as I say, transforms a spreadsheet into an app. It can be used by up to 5 people at once. So if you've got a few of you working on it, it will all update live. Like a database, it enforces the good data entry practices of making sure your dates are in correctly and drop downs and things so you don't misspell things. And it does two-way updates too. So you could have someone working on a spreadsheet in the office and that will automatically update the app, and then someone in the field on the app and that will automatically update the spreadsheet in the office. And it can, although I haven't explored all of its functionality, it can upload photos. You can do what do you call it, RFID tag scanning on it. It integrates maps. So yeah, there's quite a lot that you can do with it. So yeah, simple process. You start with a spreadsheet. In fact, let's just do this live instead of doing it on this thing. There's my live one. Right, here's the website. This is I'm just going to go to create. I've got my data here. So this is the spreadsheet we were looking at earlier. It's saved as Google Sheets though, and saved in a G drive. That needs to be there for it to work. And I'm just going to go to create app and with an existing data. Choose the data from my Google Sheets. It's that one. Okay, and it's going to sort of think about it for 30 seconds. It should be said it is currently free. Obviously, there's no guarantee it will stay that way, but it is a free thing currently. And although it does take a bit of fiddling to set up, I'm no great technical person, so so here we go. This on the right here is how it would view on your mobile phone. And because I had latitude and longitude there, it's automatically recognised that I've got a map that might be that I might want created. So that's a map of some of the trees. It's also set me up this collection thing. It's ordered it somehow a little bit weird. It's organised it by grid reference, but you can choose. Here is an editor section that you can choose how you want your data to be displayed. So oh, that's on the map thing. Let's just go to the collection. So I want to group things by the Latin name. There you go. So I've got everything grouped by the Latin name. Now I'm going to show you one that I did earlier because I did spend a few hours playing with this just for the purposes of this. But here we go. So you can see I've got all of my collection events. I've got all my birch collections here from all my different locations. I've got all my different batch IDs there. I can go into this. I can go and edit this data fairly easily. I can also add new information fairly easily, and because I've created drop downs in my table, I can just, you know, pick a name so I'm never going to misspell anything again. It automatically fills the date in, etc. So it makes data entry a lot easier for you, saves you a lot of hassle in the field. I've also set up the sheets that I had for the sowing and stock, and it does automatically move the calculations over for you as well. So if you had calculations and formulas set up in Excel, it will transfer them over to here. And I find it easier to sort of figure out the formulas in Excel. So that works for me. And I've decided I want this shown as a table rather than individual sort of tabs. So that just looks a bit like a spreadsheet. And then I had a separate distribution list, and I've ordered that by the people who are buying. So it's very flexible. It's completely up for you. I'm not going to go into all how it works because I think that is something you can play with, but you're very welcome. I'll happily share my test play around with anyone if they want to find out a little bit more about it. So there you go. That's a little dip into apps. That finally is the end. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to the team to field questions. Have I stopped sharing?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Vicky, and thank you, Gabriele, as well. Has anyone got any questions? If you want to raise your hands, and we'll come to you, ask you directly.
I've got a little question meanwhile.
Go on then. Sam's got a question.
I was just wondering, and thank you so much for your explanations and everything from geography and stock taking and your health tips. I was just wondering, what would be your, you know, you've seen a lot of spreadsheets. What would be the most common thing that you'd think, you know, make sure, what have you got something that you would recommend that is common thing that would help anybody doing a spreadsheet that might be quite basic to recommend, but if having seen a lot, what is the most common mistake that would be handy to definitely avoid doing?
Yeah, I think one of the most common things is just simple mistyping of things. And I know it sounds really basic, but you can in Excel set up a drop-down system like I just sort of like you'd see in any sort of web form. I forgot to demonstrate it here, but you can find a YouTube demo on it, no problem. And so you can say pick all, you know, so instead of having to type Crataegus monogyna 50 times. It's just a drop down, pick it, a drop down, pick it, and that just saves a whole load of transcription errors. And I think the other thing is again that clear thing of keep your data in separate columns or separate rows. Don't be tempted to just type everything into one field, one cell, because it's easier, and yes, it's easy to read, but actually that sort of completely ruins the searchability and sortability and long-term functionality of it.
Thank you.
Vicky, do you recommend Excel over Google Docs or Open Sheets or?
Well, yeah, I should have said I used Excel because that's the one I'm most familiar with. They're all very similar and they all do more or less exactly the same thing, but they will use slightly different words to describe it, or it'll be in different places. So if you're familiar with one, it's quite frustrating to try and use another one. But yeah, I really don't think there's a lot in them. If you're doing really complex things, then yes, Excel has got a lot of the more complex functionality, but pretty much every formula I think you're going to use and every function you'd use for CTN recording is going to be in OpenOffice and Google Sheets. All of them.
Yeah, cool. No hands up.
Oh, hand up.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Paul?
Hiya, yeah. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Actually, I just want, it isn't really a question. It's just a thanks to Gabrielle and Vicky. And I know you're probably going to do it, Liz, but actually it was a big help. And probably I don't think anybody's got a question because the information that you've given us has been quite comprehensive, really. So tomorrow morning I may wake up with 1,000 questions, but actually here and now I think the information that you've given us has been really, really helpful, actually, and it'll probably just take a bit of time for us all to take that in, I think, actually. So so I'd love to have a question, but I've got a lot to think about now. So I haven't got one yet, but I may have in the future, actually. So, but thanks very much. It was brilliant, really. I just wanted to say that. So thanks.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then, yeah, afterwards, I know that Vicky's stuff's all going to be sent through, and I'll send through all the templates as well. So that's a chance to kind of pick through and have a look. And if you do have any questions at that point, then feel free to email us, and we'll be more than happy to chat. Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Paul. So maybe we do a shout for one. Oh, have we got no? But still, Paul. One last shout out for questions, and then if no one has got any questions, we'll let you escape early.
I could have bored you for hours with more spreadsheet information had I known we were finishing early. Sorry, I thought this was just a dipping a toe in, right?
Oh, I'm quite happy. I love a spreadsheet, but then maybe I'm a little bit weird.
No, I think we're all here together because we secretly quite like data and recording.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of say goodbye now, but if anyone's got an urgent question, please put your hands up. I'd really like to thank Vicky for such a great presentation. It was really clear and really easy to listen to and understand. Thank you so much. And also thank you to Gabrielle for explaining how more trees do it in practice. That was brilliant. I think we should say thanks to Dave as well, spreadsheet master. And thank you to everyone for attending tonight. And I guess we need to say sorry for the technical problems the last time, and we're glad it worked out this evening. And thank you for your patience. Oh, I can see a dog. Say goodbye to the dog. That's it, I've lost it now. So thank you, everyone. Please do get in touch if you've got any questions, and we'll try our best to answer them.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good evening.
Cool. Well, thank you. That's nice.
That was really good. It was really good. Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, sorry, it felt like we're a bit rattled through. You know what? You can't see any kind of clock when you're screen sharing. So it was a bit like, oh, have I gone on for ages?
It's also, you can't really see other people either, can you? So you can't go to reactions. It's really,
yeah, it's funny. Even like on Zoom, you get just a list of like, you get to see faces.